All right, so again, good morning, everyone. Today we are back to Jesus in the Home, a book of messages of our Master Jesus Christ and his teachings at the house, primarily the house of Peter, but some other places as well. Usually conversations amongst the disciples and their family members, opportunities that Jesus used to teach. And usually the topic of discussion comes from the disciples or some other family members, not necessarily from Jesus. Actually, throughout this book, I think none came from Jesus directly, but he used the opportunity on the conversations of others to imprint his teachings. Today we have 42, 43, and 44. And the first one is the message of compassion. So, Ryder, can you read?
Yes, of course. Okay. The message of compassion. On a clear night, the gathering at Peter's house was focused on the difficulties of dealing with people, how to spread the values of the gospel, how to instill the same gift and the same blessing in so many diverse minds. After a long and fraternal discussion, during which Jesus had remained completely silent, John was concerned about the subject and asked him, Lord, what are we supposed to do when slander shreds our hearts? Take pity on the slanderer and work for the good of all. The heavenly messenger responded, smiling, because love undoes the darkness of evil and work destroys disrespectful thoughts. Master asked James, the son of Zebedee, and how are we to act when someone brutally attacks us? Those who are led by violence, added Christ kindly, must either be crazy or poisoned. Help them regain their senses. Lord, asked Judas with fiery eyes, and when those who offend us are clothed with respectable authority, whether as a prince or priest, with all the appearance of a conscientious and a normal leader, the serpent can hide itself in a bunch of flowers, and there are worms that live in the most beautiful looking fruit. Those in authority who show that they are violent and cruel are ill. Take pity on them because they are sleeping a nightmare of dark illusions from which they will have to awaken someday. Help them as best you can and continue on your way, acting with the happiness of all. Master, and when our house is hid by crime, what am I supposed to do when faced with someone who has betrayed my trust, who has dishonored my name, or who has shed blood in my home? Pity every type of criminal, Jesus explained, and do not desire to break the law that your neighbor has disregarded, because both of the persecutor and the criminal in any situation carry a blazing fire with them. One wrong does not right another, and blood does not cleanse blood. Forgive and help. Time is responsible for giving back to everyone in accordance with their own effort. Master Bartholomew cut in. What are we to do about the judge who condemns us unfairly? Have mercy on him and continue to cooperate for the good of all those around you. There is always a higher judge who analyzes those who criticize or condemn, and beyond one horizon, other broader and more luminous horizons unfold. Lord asked Tiberius, what are we supposed to do about the woman we love when she suffers a moral downfall? Jesus gazed at him tenderly and asked in turn, isn't the inner suffering that afflicts her day and night punishment enough? A blasphemic silence fell over the group, and when he saw that the disciples didn't have any more questions, the Lord concluded, if we intend to banish ills from the world, we must cultivate the love that sympathizes with the service that edifies for the happiness of all. Do not deceive yourselves. Time is an inflexible instrument of the law that gives to each of us according to our deeds. No one can hope to right a crime by practicing other crimes, because time changes everything on earth with the fire of suffering or with the ice of death.
Thank you, Soraya. The message of compassion. And if you go to the dictionary and look the semantic meaning of compassion, we see that the word compassion is made of two words from the Latin that means with passion, and passion means suffering. So with suffering. So compassion is a sentiment in which we feel the suffering of another person with so much intensity that propel us forward to take some kind of action, whatever that may be, from an act of prayer to something more palpable, right? The compassion is such an important feeling, sentiment that Kardec takes a whole page in the Gospel according to Spiritism, only the word compassion. Maybe I'll read a little bit at the end of this. But as most of the messages in this book, the chapters in this book, the very first paragraph tells us what is the topic of discussion, what the disciples, their families are concerned with. And in this particular one is the difficulties with dealing with people and how to spread the gospel, how to bring the same message to so many different people out there and in different in a sense of cultures, different in the level of moral and intellectual progress each one of us presents at the same time. The message is the same, the gospel is one and only, but the receivers are so multifaceted, so many different people at different levels. How do you deliver the same message in such a diversity? And of course, the word is with compassion. And for all the cases that the disciples and their families asked about Jesus, there is a common denominator in the word on the suggestion of Jesus Christ, what is compassion, right? So the one that is slanderer, have pity on them and continue to work. When this, because love undoes the darkness and darkness of evil, and work destroys the respectful thoughts. You may not like me. You may not like the way I look. You may not like the color of my skin. You may not like my beliefs, my ideologies. But my work is more important than all of those things. And if my work is a good work, it will destroy all the disrespectful thoughts. Because we recognize the fruit, the tree by its fruit. If the fruit's good, the tree needs to be good. And the tree may not look the way you like, not be the way we would like a tree to be, but the fruit is good, therefore the tree is good. So work is the remedy to destroy all those disrespectful thoughts. And love is irresistible. You know, a little flame of a candle eliminates darkness. And following through, what do you do with the violent ones? Right? Those who Those who still make use of violence. They suggest, again, have pity. Recognize that those individuals, he or she is sick. Is sick of the mind or is sick of the soul. We have a psychiatric condition, a brain problem, or is really ill of the more difficult kind of sickness, the sickness of the eternal spirit, a sickness of the soul. And the sick does not need retaliation, does not need violence back. He needs treatment. For the psychiatric sickness, whatever our medical sciences are able to provide. For the sake of the soul, the remedy again is love. Because it's love going to go back there that eliminates the darkness. And compassion is an exercise of love. For one thing, do not retaliate. Do not seek retaliation because it just displays our own sickness. If I hate the haters, what am I? A hater myself. If someone hit me and I hit back, I just show that I'm just as violent. The fact that I got hit first does not justify my crime of hitting someone as well. That's why Jesus tells us if someone hit on the right side of the face, offer the left as well. Which means someone show the side of violence, you show the side of compassion. If someone show the side of ignorance, you show the sign of wisdom. Not that it would become a punch bag for anyone, right? What about if the ones making injustice, violence against us, as someone with a certain status, and someone with a uniform that should be respected, but unfortunately many use the uniform to disrespect others. What do we do in this case? And Jesus tells that titles and social status does not declare one's moral and ethical value. Right? That a serpent may be hidden inside a bush of flowers. And we can add over here that those with the social position or the social authority is even more responsible. Because again, those are the ones who should honor that position, who honor that authority to build something good, not to use it in acts of violence and injustices. They will have to adjust themselves with the social law, with the divine laws. And in the case of betrayal, if conjugal or otherwise, the one who committed the act of betrayal, of treason, of misleading, they had already committed themselves to the afflictions created by the conflict. If the deal between A and B was such, both agreed, and one side betrayed that deal, the one who committed the betrayal is already committed themselves to the conflict. Will live with that problem in their soul until it's repaired. In conjugal cases, and if both parties agrees that monogamy is the way to go and they agree to it, then you agree to it. If you betray it, you commit yourself to have this heavy load of the conflict in your mind. It is enough punishment and self-imposed punishment. On your side, have pity for that individual. You have to deal with the divine laws. From our side, forgive and let go. Do not hold yourself at that moment of treason, because then you become a victim of your own inability to forgive. So the first person commits the offense, and will have to deal with the conflict because of the offense. The second person, if is not unable to have pity, to have compassion, to forgive and let go, is condemning oneself by keeping themselves at the moment of suffering. And we see that basically every week in our leadership meetings. And what I'm saying is that it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away when the body dies. It stays until we are able to let go. Not even necessarily forgive yet, eventually will happen, but do not suffer for the mistake of someone else. And he closes telling us, if we intend to banish ills from the world, we must cultivate the love that sympathizes with the service, that fights for happiness of all. Do not deceive yourselves. Time is an inflexible instrument of the law that gives to each of us according to our needs. No one can hope to right a crime by practicing other crimes, because time will change everything on earth with the fire of suffering or with the ice of death. So the message love always, all and always. Good time is God's greatest ally, and will impose all the necessary corrective circumstances that will lead the progress of those who have committed the crimes. They will have to repair in accordance with the divine laws. Again, not punishment, but correction. And in the book, The Gospel in Accordance to Spirit, in chapter, I have here, chapter 13, Kardec display on item 17, a topic of compassion. Just going to read half of a paragraph here, in which the Spirit says, the sentiments that most likely you make your progress by taming your selfishness and your pride, and that which can clothe your soul with humility are beneficence and love of your neighbor. It is compassion. So the answer for the trouble of the trouble of the disciples in that discussion today, the difficulties of dealing with people, is to have compassion, is to understand the suffering of that individual. That yes, there is a diversity of minds, of cultures, of stages of moral intellectual progress. The message is the same. The gospel is the same. You should be able to deliver that in accordance to the needs of each one, without deviating from the teachings itself, but adapting that teaching to where each one stands at that point, if you are able to, of course. But continuously working. I think the next chapter is very similar, but will deal a little bit more with our necessity to put up effort in being a servant, expanding the gospel as much as we can. Is there any question, any comment? Don't see any hints. Okay, so we can move on to number 43.
Okay. The glory of dedication. James, the son of Alphaeus, was recounting the natural problems in becoming a disciple when several others voiced their opinions regarding the difficulties of spiritual growth. The majority concluded that it is very truly impossible to practice the lessons of the gospel in a world that is on the wrong side of goodness, selflessness, and forgiveness. Most people take pleasure in being avarice or heartened. Jesus is being surprisingly quiet as he listened to his disciples' opinions. When Peter asked him directly about the matter, Jesus thought for a few instants and considered. Concerning teaching and spiritual growth, everything depends on the student. And then he said kindly, in the time of David, there was a great artist who played the harp with such perfection that a lot of important people came from afar to hear him play. From time to time, great lords and their carriages will lie around near his tree-encircled house in order to listen to his sublime improvisations. The admirable master gained both fame and fortune, and everyone believed that no one on earth could match his musical skill. During his sorties and recitals, he had in his personal service a slave who was apparently inept and foolish, who served water, sweets, and fruits to the guests. He never said a word, but focused all his attention on the divine instrument as if he were fascinated by the hands that played it. Many years went by when the artist came home unexpectedly one evening after the banquet of a friend in the neighborhood, and with indescribable wonder, he heard a heavenly melody floating through the air. Someone was playing magnificently in his solitary house, as if it were an angel exiled here on earth. Who could the stranger who had taken his place be? In tears of emotion, at foreseeing the existence of someone with an artistic ability much greater than his own, he slowly went in so as not to be noticed. He was completely shocked when he saw that the marvelous harpist was his foolish old slave, who, using the free time to which he was entitled by law, and without bothering anyone, was practicing his master's exercises, to which he had been dedicating his vigilant love and moving silent for many years. The magnanimous and famous artist set him free and granted him the position that he rightly deserved. Faced with the surprised faces of the disciples who had become humbly quiet, the master concluded, the acquisition of noble qualities is infallible glory of dedication. Every man and every woman who uses their spare time on the harp of life, forming to the wisdom and beauty with which our Father expresses himself in all corners of the world, will quickly absorb his grandeur and sublimities, thus becoming representatives of heaven for their brothers and sisters in humanity. But when they work only during the shared time for which they are paid without making any use of the great concessions of time that the divine goodness has granted them in the body, they will receive nothing more than the world's transitory remuneration. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To the glory of dedication. And again, in the very paragraph we have here, what is the topic of discussion? And in this particular day, it was the natural problem in becoming a disciple. The word natural here is important. It's not the problems that we create to in order to practice the gospel, to expand the gospel, but it's naturally when you go out there to face that we encounter those problems, those difficulties. You can go back to the last passage because there is a variety of individuals out there with different state of minds. And because in this world, is on the wrong side of goodness, selflessness, I have a problem with this word, and forgiveness. So it's a word that still today it's pretty much contrary. to the words of the gospel. Well, naturally, we are moving a different direction by the law of progress. But still, it's to teach the gospel is almost like swimming against the current. The current is pushing us to one side, and we need to put extra effort. You have to swim harder to be able to move forward. Otherwise, the current will pull us backwards. And if you think, it could not be any other way, right? Because in a world that is going with the current, going with goodness, that going with humility, that goes with forgiveness, that is going that where charity is the norm. It's no need to spread the gospel. It's already spread it. It's already there. The gospel will not be the good news. It will basically be old news. Jesus came and said, I didn't come for the healthy, I come for the sick. He did not come for the wise, he come for the ignorant. It could not be any other way. You're not gonna go and teach, you know, mathematics, equation of first degree to doctor in mathematics. There's no need for it. So the only need of spreading the gospel is where the gospel is needed, and exactly in a word where that is in the wrong side of goodness, selflessness, and forgiveness. That's what we need to be if we seek to become a disciple, and we cannot expect to be an easy ride. Should not expect that we're going swim in the direction of the current, because then there is no need to spread what's already spreaded. And in this teaching, Jesus used the case of a virtuoso harp player, who would play the instrument with such a virtuosity. Oh my God, I'm really struggling with words. That would attract everyone to listen to him, from kings to to scholars. Everybody would love to come and to be able to listen. He played the harper because he was indeed a virtuoso. And he had an slave that would take care of him, would take care of the house, would serve the guests, would take care of his harp, always silently. That is described as apparently inept and foolish. All right. He just did his job. And one day, the virtuoso master was coming back home, and he heard the most sublime music being playing inside of his own house. If he was not the one playing with that harp, who could that be that was playing so wonderfully? Someone was playing magnificently in his solitary house, as if were an angel exiled here on earth. And he gets close and finds out that it was his slave who was doing the playing, that was as virtuoso as he, the master himself. And I think this lesson is extremely important. My mother used to say something, of course, in Portuguese. Primeira obrigação, depois a devoção. We translate to first your duties, then your devotion. And I think that the message of Jesus Christ is exactly that. First, take care of duties, then you take care of your devotion, then you dedicate yourself for anything else. And this slave did exactly that. He did his duties as a slave, and once he had free time, he would dedicate himself to his devotion, that was the harp, that he loved, that he put effort to learn, and he learned to be just as good as the master. And with that, he received his freedom, but in reality, he's built his freedom. He worked for it. He dedicated himself so intensely that he conquered his freedom. And that is the very important message for us, that we are here in this life that demands time and effort from us to fulfill our duties, to take care of this physical body, to work, take care of the family, take care of the house, and there is impositions that life demands from us. But the same life offers us plenty of time and opportunities to dedicate ourselves to other things. And if we seek to be a disciple and a present disciple, we need to use that time, to use those opportunities, and dedicate ourselves. Not a free ride. Again, it's almost swimming against the current. If not, it is swimming against the current. That we are not going to conquer our freedom without putting effort, without using our time wisely, which means first your duties, then your devotion, then take care of your business. And again, life, as hard as it may be, and each one of us have a different lifestyle, each one of us have duties and difficulties with health, with the family, with all things that happens in life. But all will have the time, the opportunity to dedicate ourselves to something other than those duties. And in this case, we're talking about being a disciple, which means being a learner and passing along the teachings, right? And with this dedication, and I think that is the message, we can observe the master, learn from the master, emulate the master, and eventually become as good as the master. So if we seek to be disciples of Christ, we observe Christ, we learn from Christ, we imitate Christ. And with that practice, with that dedication, eventually we can become as good as Christ. Because he's the one who told us that, no, we are all gods, that we can do everything he does and even more, which that only means that he didn't do everything he could. He didn't display all his arsenal of love to us yet. I think it's, of all the lessons, they are wonderful. This is the one that touched us, or touched me a lot, that we seek that freedom as slaves of this world, of these duties that we have in this life that we have. But our liberation is done throughout education. To serve in the cause of love, emulating the masters, doing as the master Kame taught us to do. And of course, that he closes with the acquisition of noble qualities in the infallible glory of dedication. Every man and every woman who uses their spare time on their harp of life, conforming to the wisdom of beauty with which our Father expressed himself in all corners of the world, will quickly absorb the grandeur and sublimities, thus become representative of heaven for their brothers and sisters in humanity. But when they work only during the share time for which they are paid without making any use of the great concessions of time that the divine goodness has granted them in the body, they will receive nothing more than the world's transitory remuneration. So again, life demands duties, and we get reward for taking care of those duties. But life also offers us plenty of time and opportunity to dedicate ourselves to something beyond the duties required for our physical life here. And if you only use our time for the remunerations of material things, will you get a reward? But that's it. If you want to go beyond, to gain our liberation from this world, from the difficulties and the duties of this world, as the slave did, we need to dedicate ourselves to something that goes beyond, to something that the remuneration is abstracted, cannot be quantified with a dollar sign or any other material thing. Any questions, any comment?
I think leading by example is also very important here, right? Because many times we mention this, which is the words of Francis of Assisi, right? Go and preach the gospel, and if it's necessary, use words. Right? The example makes makes a much bigger impression on people than words. Here, he learned from the example. He didn't learn from the words. He was paying attention, right? And you, whenever you are paying attention to things happening around you, you can always learn.
Yep, I totally agree. And bring back the previous lessons as well. The examples are available around us if you are paying attention, and this paying attention is part of the dedication. And not be deceived by titles, not be deceived by uniforms of authorities. Not saying that the ones with the titles, the one with authority may not be good examples, because they may be, but being careful to separate the titles, the uniforms, the famous from the true being, the true example being left for us. We need to be careful here to look at the work, look at the fruit, to recognize the tree, right? And again, trying to be fair here, because a lot of famous people, a lot of people that are in position of authority, they are a good example for us as well. Not just because they are famous and have authority and have titles that they are not able to be good examples. But look at the fruit, look at the work. That's how we are going to recognize the tree. We are moving very fast. But if there is no question, let's go to the last one.
Okay, 44. A lesson on essentials. The disciples were discussing the things that were essential for well-being. When taking over the direction of the conflicting thoughts, the Lord added, people need to understand their own happiness so that if they lose it, they don't become sad ghosts of lamentation, removed from the simplest of truths about nature. People immerse themselves in a heavy wave of fanciful artifice, wasting both time and life through unnecessary turmoil. And as if he were remembering an incident that would illustrate the matter, he paused for a few moments and then continued. There was once an illustrious Roman lady who was traveling with a 5-year-old son from the city of Sessos to Smyrna in a luxurious galley of her homeland. Upon setting sail, they were accompanied by 2 slaves loaded down with large bags of various items of jewelry, necklaces and cameos, bracelets, and gold hairnets adorned with precious stones, which revealed her predilection for rare adornments. All the personnel in her service bowed down in respect whenever she passed by. Such was the impact of the treasure that she had brought on board. As soon as the ship was on the high seas, the distinguished lady became the center of everyone's attention. During cordial get-togethers, she was the object of everyone's interest because of the shiny ornaments she was wearing. The jury was proceeding calmly. Well, on one sunny morning, something unexpected happened. The galley hit a treacherous reef, and a wide gash opened up, allowing the ocean to pour in. Long hours of struggle ensued with the hopes of being able to repair the damage. Then an even stronger jolt put the ship beyond repair, and lifeboats were lowered to try to save the travelers. The illustrious patroness was hurriedly called for. The captain calculated the arrival at the next port in 2 days of risky sailing if the winds were favorable. The hopeful and afflicted young matron gave her young son a hug. Within a few moments, she reached a small lifeboat, holding the child in a small packet of what her travel companions believed to be her most valuable jewels. However, when she showed the contents to few friends in misfortune who were with her, she exclaimed, "My son is my most valuable possession, and this is what I consider at the most useful." The small bag contained 2 loaves and 10 ripe figs, with which the small group of castaways were fed during the painstaking hours that separated them from dry land. The master rested for a few seconds and then added, "True happiness is not based on transitory riches, because a day always comes when people are forced to part with the external goods that are most dear to their hearts. Foolish people become attached to lands and mills, money and honors, wines and pleasures, as if they would never have to settle accounts with death. The prudent spirit, however, realizes that all worldly goods should be used for enriching one's virtues, and that the simplest blessings of nature are the basis for our essential tranquility. So, let us seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness, keeping on the earth that which is vitally necessary for the upkeep of our physical life. Then all joy will be added unto us."
Okay, thank you. Well, the last chapter of the day, the last of essentials. And again, the topic of discussion is essential for well-being. So the disciples are discussing what is it that is essential for our well-being. And of course, that will generate different thoughts, and each one of us can think of one thing that we believe to be essential for our well-being. And then Jesus starts saying that people need to understand their own happiness. So Jesus is translate or use a synonymous here, well-being, essential well-being for happiness. So you need to understand what is essential for our well-being. What we need to understand what we need to stay in a state of happiness. not to reach happiness, but stay in a state of happiness. And he used the example of this case that it could be a parable, it could be a factual case. You know, in the time of Jesus, those are the way people traveled and things happens in the ocean, right? And it's so much so that the writer says, as if he were remembering an incident that would illustrate the matter. Okay, so maybe this actually happened. This is a commonplace. Like today, you may have a car accident. There, at that time, would have a boat accident. And there was this illustrious Roman lady that was traveling with her 5 years old son from Rome to another city by boat, and taking her son and two large bags. No, I'm sorry. Two slaves loaded down with large bags of various items of jewelry, necklaces, cameos, bracelets, gold garnet, adorned with precious stones. We can now show that she liked the fancy stuff. She liked the fancy, high quality jewelry. And she was traveling, she was going to take them with her. And eventually, yes, things that could happen in the ocean. The ocean pretty much dictates what's going to happen to the boat. Something happened, and then they have an accident, and water's coming into the boat, into that ship, and they try to repair, and another incident happened, and things got even worse, and they have to abandon the large ship to a smaller boat. And of course, when things like that happens, we cannot take everything that we wanted, because those small boats cannot carry that many things. Then she took her son with her and a little tiny bag. Now, assuming that this is a woman of authority, a woman of power, she perhaps could demand to take more stuff. She perhaps could demand to take her bags of jewelry and other things. But it appears over here that she had no problem of taking only her son and a small tiny bag with her. And in that small tiny bag, she had loaf of bread and 10 ripe figs. And with that, she was able to feed not only herself, but the group of castaways were fed during the painstaking hours that separate them from the land. All that she took was her son and enough food to feed not only her son, but also the other castaways that were in that small boat with her. And she explained that what's essential for her, what's the most important for her is her son. That is their valuable possessions. In this example, this woman knows what is essential. She knows what's important for her happiness. She had lots of non-essential things. She enjoyed them. She liked them. So much so, she wanted to travel, she should carry them with her. But those were not essentials. I think the point of the message here from Jesus is exactly that. He's not condemning the richness. He's not really condemning the superfluous. He's not condemning the one who has the ability, the possibility of having non-essential things is not such a big crime. But you need to know what's really essential, what's really important for our happiness. And those bags of jewelry, of gold, of precious stones, it's okay, it was nice. It was not essential at all. So no problem leave them behind and only hold for her what's essential. There is her son and what would maintain, support life for her son and for everyone else in that boat. And it's important that it's not only for her son, it's for everybody else in that boat as well. So I think the message from Christ clear is that we need to be able to differentiate the essential for happiness and what may be good, may be nice to have, but it's not essential for happiness. It will not bring us happiness. If she had to choose between, you can leave your son and take all your jewelry with you, should not accept that deal. Because the jewelry would not bring her in a state of happiness. On the contrary, keep the conflict. For her to stay in a state of happiness, with peace with our own conscience in this world that we live, that's how the spirits said there's what is the relative happiness that we can conquer in this world of trials and expiations. They said, peace with your own conscience. That's the highest happiness that we can achieve here. And should never have peace with your own conscience, leaving behind the son and taking the jewelry, right? So she had a good understanding of what is essential versus what's non-essential for her happiness. And the message is for us not to stress ourselves, to not create unnecessary turmoil in our lives, seeking to acquire and to retain the non-essential, to prioritize the essential. And the essential is not material things. It is essential, yes, to have a loaf of bread and some figs to support life. We just cover in the Spirit's book, Law of Self-Preservation. We need to seek to stay here as long as possible. We need to try to preserve good health of this physical body for as long as possible, because this is the school where we are to learn valuable lessons that will lead us to our liberation. If we go back to the previous reading, using our time wisely, learning to separate essentials from non-essentials and prioritize the essentials, the longer we live here, the greater is the probability or opportunity to learn those valuable lessons. If we do have the opportunity of having around some non-essentials, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, it's wrong by the means of acquisition. If you have to step somebody's head to be able to pile your bag of jewelries, if you hurt someone to build your fortune, and if you are extremely attached to those things, to the point that, oh, I leave my son behind, but I cannot be away from my jewelry, then it's a problem. Then it becomes a serious problem. So the problem is the means of acquisition when it's not honest, and the attachment to it. Because when you know what's essential, you let go of the non-essential easily without any problem, as this woman did. And the suggestion from Christ here is, don't create enough problems. Don't create unnecessary duties. If we go back to the previous messages as well, we have enough duties here to deal with. Do not create any more. Do not create any more problems. So you have more free time to dedicate yourself to the good. And when comes a time that you have to leave behind the non-essential, and you will leave behind the non-essential, like it or not, get ready to let go. Because if you're not, you'll suffer. And again, we see cases like that in our mediumship meetings of spirits with a degree of attachment to the non-essential, that they live their life in the spirit world without it, and suffer terribly for not having the non-essential, think that it's the essential. So true happiness is not based on transitory riches, because a day always comes when people are forced to part with the external goods that are most dear to their hearts. External good is what's not belong to us. It's what is not a part of the spirit. Foolish people become attached to lands and mills, money and honor, wines and pleasures, if they will never have to settle accounts with death. The prudent spirits, however, realize that all worldly goods should be used for enriching one's virtues, and that the simplest blessings of nature are the basis for our essential tranquility. So let us seek the kingdom of God and its righteousness, keep on the earth that which is vitally necessary for the upkeep of our physical life. Then all joy will be added unto us. So again, you're not saying here to seek to live a life of not enjoying what life has to offer. No, enjoy what life has to offer. If I'm able to acquire things that I enjoy, that's fine. If you are, I don't know, if you like jewelry and you work honestly to acquire your jewelry, and you buy your jewelry, and by buying your jewelry, you are not denying anything of anything that someone needs. If I stop putting milk on the table for my kids because I have to have a fancy car, then it's a problem, because I like fancy car. But once I fulfill my duties, again, first your duties, then your devotion. Once I fulfill my duties and my responsibilities, and I really enjoy fancy cars or fancy watches, whatever, why not? But just make sure that these are not essential. It is essential to put milk on the table for the kids. Once that is fulfilled, then I could, if I can, go and get my fancy car or my fancy watch. Now, do not suffer for not having a fancy car or a fancy watch. Do not create unnecessary turmoil of your life for the non-essential. Fair to stress yourself if you're not able to put milk on the table for the kids. That is stressful. But not having the latest iPhone, that's non-essential. You may need a little phone, yes. Everybody 2 days in our lifestyle today likely needs a phone, and not on a phone, but a smartphone. But you don't need to change the newest model every time it comes, every year. If it's you are so much into technology and that's important for you, really enjoy that and can afford it, fine, no problem. But do not create any unnecessary turmoil for it, because you're gonna leave, even believe it or not, even the cell phone you're gonna leave behind. Can you just imagine you're gonna go back to the spiritual world, there will be no cell phone for you to use? Are you ready for it? Can you do it? Time will come. Any questions?
I
Any
think
comments?
it's always important to stress that it is an individual choice, right, and necessity. So many times we what we need to try to learn is to focus on our spiritual, moral, and intellectual evolvement, right? What happens is that we focus on the transitory and we forget to focus on the permanent, which are our needs for our spiritual growth, moral and intellectual. But it is individual because each spirit is on their individual path of evolvement, different from everyone else. And also the necessities, right? What is essential for our spiritual growth, it's different for each person, right? So, there is no fixed recipe of what's necessary, what is essential and what's not essential, because someone that works delivering food in a delivery service, a car is essential, or a means of transportation, if they are indifferent, is essential because it's how they make their money, survive, and can provide for their family. Elmo gave a very good example. The phones today, the cell phones, they are essential for different uses for different people, but not for everyone. If you live in the middle of nowhere, in a small community where everyone shares everything they have, you don't really need a cell phone. But again, it's essential to other people that need for the work, that need for even for helping and assisting, right? How many works of charity have been improved because of the access that we have to means of communication with each other. So if we are to analyze and question ourselves, it's the relationship with what is essential for me to have to allow me to continue growing morally and intellectually. And it's different for each person, and there is nothing wrong, with having, as Elmo say, having things that give us pleasure if we have the ability, if we have the means, if it is essential for our spiritual growth to have things that helps us find peace in our own lives to be able to help others, then it becomes necessary. It's always complex when we talk about this subject, right? Because people would like to have a simple recipe of what is essential and what's not, but it's different for each one of us. And again, some people can live with very little and still have a productive life. Some people cannot. For their peace of mind, they need to have some certain things. And if having those certain things allows them peace of mind, and they put their time to help others in any way or form, then, it is essential to them at that stage of evolution. So we need to be very aware of for each one of us what is essential and what is not, but understanding that everything of the material world will be left behind. So the question is, when you go back to the spiritual world, if you are going to miss material things that you are leaving behind, then it can be an issue. Now, if you use the material things to help you evolve morally and intellectually, and you go back to the spiritual world and you leave all these material things behind, and you don't really miss them, then whatever was that you used, materially essential or non-essential, was fine. It helped you grow. So I think it's an important chapter for us to reflect, right?
Yeah, for there is something in the chat over there.
Yeah, that's from Alcione. I agree that it's important to give ourselves gifts and enjoy opportunities. However, we shouldn't forget to help others as well. If we have extra money to pamper ourselves, we could go an extra mile to support someone else in need, whether donating food or helping pay a bill for someone else. Yes, exactly that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we can think of absolute and relative necessity in terms of what's essential for happiness. If you translate happiness in accordance with the Spirit's book as peace with our own conscience, the practice of charity, the practice of giving of ourselves or some of ourselves to others, as also in place over here, becomes very important as we develop ourselves, because then our conscience will lead us to the practice of charity. And if we don't do that, we are not going to be in peace with our own conscience. So as we progress morally, it becomes an essential the exercise of charity, and and eventually becomes our normal common thing. Go back to Socrates' walk that I said that 1,000 times, but I love the example. Going to the market every morning and keep looking at all those things that they had to sell over there, and each one of those stores, pick up the merchandise, look at it, check the price, put it back, pick up something else, put it back, never buys anything. And one day one of the owners got fed up with him and said, Socrates, can you stop that? What's up with you? Why you come here every single morning? You put your hands on everything, you look at everything, you analyze everything, you put it back and never buy anything. And Socrates asked, yes, I just like to come in here and look all the things that I do not need in order to be happy. Most of us are not there yet. Unfortunately, we suffer the things that we do not have. When you reach the ability of stay in a state of happiness, peace with our own conscience, without requiring material things, that'll be a big step for us. And going into absolute and relative essentials, necessities, the absolute is what we take with us. When this physical body perishes and go back to the spiritual world, we're going to bring what's essential. The relative essentials, what John said, and especially in the time that we live today, the more complex is our lives, the more complex is our society. Those relative essentials, necessities, also becomes more complex. So yes, I tried not to deal with cell phone as long as I could. That should become absolutely essential for my job. I have to have not on a cell phone, I have to have a good cell phone to send images to the doctor, to send images of MRIs, of CAT scans to the doctors. I need to have a good cell phone that could do that face calls with patients. It become a necessity for my job. Now, eventually, when I leave this physical body behind, I'm not gonna bring that cell phone with me. And I have to be comfortable with the idea that it was essential for my job and for my job only, not for me as an individual, as a eternal spirit. If I deliver food on a bicycle, electrical bike, that electrical bike is essential for me to make my living. If there is no battery, then I have to be pedal, and you have to find some other way to survive. But it becomes essential for my job to fulfill my necessities in that job. Right? If I like watches and I collect watches, which I don't, and I don't even have not even one, and I can afford it, that's fine. But know that it's not essential. And know that if you compromised your well-being or the well-being of a loved one because of a watch, then you are compromising yourself. Then you're going to create that conflict because it is against the natural laws. It's the importance of going into this, what is the absolute essentials? What's the relative? Again, the more complex is our life, the more complex is our societies, those relatives become more numerous and more important. But again, once you leave it behind, this physical body behind, you're going to leave all those relative essentials behind as well. Not to leave them behind without any attachment. No, that is important for the job. It was important for X, Z, and well, but the essentials, the absolute essentials, is what you bring with you. Is what acquire through the exercise of free will that you building, the progress that you build morally and intellectually. Anybody else?
Okay. So just a heads up, next Sunday we'll be studying the Medium's book. I think we are in chapter 11, right? Starting we'll finish in chapter 10 and start in chapter 11, I believe. Or we are in chapter 10, the nature of communications. Yeah. Anyways. Then the following Sunday, it's going to be between Christmas and New Year's, and we'll be closed. We'll be closed from Christmas, from the 25th, and reopen on the 4th, which is a Sunday with the study of action and reaction. So we're here next Sunday for the Medium's book. Then we will be off for one Sunday. Okay, for Thursdays, both Christmas and New Year's falls on Thursday, so we won't have the study of the Spirit's book. The Monday meetings, presential meetings, the fraternal assistance meetings, we have only one Monday that we won't be there, which is the 29th. Okay? Carol, can you do a final prayer?
Yes, certainly. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Elmo, for hosting for us today. Thank you, John. And thank you also, Sarita, for reading for us today. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together again for our studies of the book Jesus and the Home, chapters 42, 43, and 44. The topics being the message of compassion, the glory of dedication, and a lesson on essentials. Spreading the gospel's message is done through compassion, which is an exercise in love. Act for the happiness of all, serving in the best way possible. Humility and goodness and forgiveness are still needed in our current times. Liberation is done through our duties required and also to the time that we dedicate to higher endeavorings and studies. What is needed? What is essential? What is most useful for our happiness? We should use our consciousness or conscience to discern this. Don't stress about the non-essentials in life. dedicate free time to cultivating goodness and virtues. May we grow morally and intellectually, remembering that charity is love in action. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center and all spiritual centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, our friends, loved ones, and co-workers. And may we remind ourselves now to go forth as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.